The key turned smoothly, like any other Tuesday, and Adrian Lau stepped into the cool hush of his Mont Chiara condo with a paper bag of mangoes for his mother. The television murmured about exchange rates. A glass shattered. Then he saw it. Serena's arm arcing down, a dish towel snapped to a whip, the bloom of red on Auntie May's cheek. The bag slipped from his hand, mangoes thudding, rolling under the dining table like startled birds. Serena froze. Auntie May stared at the floor, small as a folded umbrella. Adrian reached into his pocket, thumbed his phone camera on, and said very softly, "Enough." He had always been good at walking into rooms as if he owned the air. Adrian told himself it was the training. 2 decades of boardrooms, polished confidence, and the instinct to make a path, even where none existed. That Tuesday, the air already belonged to fear. He knew it before the glass clipped through the silence and shattered, before he saw the red print across his mother's cheek. He knew it from the way Serena's shoulders were hunched, defensive, coiled. The way Auntie May's hands busied themselves with nothing, the tidying that isn't tidying, the tremor of someone trying to disappear. Serena's eyes flicked to the phone in his hand, the black glass of it, the tiny red dot pulsing in the corner of the screen. "You're early," she said, as if that explained everything. He stepped between them. "Go to the bedroom, Ma." Auntie May didn't argue. She moved like a leaf in evening wind, shuffling down the short hall to the guest room. The dish towel dangled from Serena's hand like an accusation. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Serena gestured, then laughed at herself, that glittering laugh friends had long called hypnotic. "It's nothing. She spilled soup. She called me useless. She keeps taking my things." Adrian kept the phone steady. The front camera reflected him. Shirt sleeves rolled past his forearms, tie loosened, his face tired and thinner than last year's wedding photos with Serena, where he'd believed in new beginnings like a man in an advertisement believed in watches. He felt a slow heat rise from his chest, anger, shame, a nausea that tasted of rust. "Put the towel down," he said. Serena's chin lifted. "Don't you dare record me. You're hitting my mother." "She's not your mother," Serena snapped, and then realized what she'd said. "I mean, she is, obviously she is, but she's been sabotaging us. She threw away my serum. She hides my keys. Adrian, we can't live like this with her here. You promised you would look into a care facility. She had surgery," he said. "She's staying here until she's steady." "Your ex-wife should be handling this," Serena muttered. He stared at Serena as if the right angle would turn her back into the person he thought he'd chosen, the woman who danced in the kitchen to early 2000s R&B while she stirred curry, the woman who told him she understood pressure, that she wouldn't ask what he couldn't give. He had believed her. He had also believed he could outrun the wreckage of his divorce by running faster. "Adrian," Serena said, "stop recording." He didn't stop. He walked to the shoe cabinet, opened the second drawer, and took out the spare key. An old habit, to check for something solid when he didn't know what to do with his hands. The key was a little talisman of decision-making. It unlocked, it locked, it meant control. He turned, walked to the door, and slid the deadbolt shut. Serena's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" He pocketed the spare key and lifted the phone so that the lens took in the room. The broken glass, the fallen mangoes, Serena's clenched fist, the faint smear of red at the edge of the console table where Auntie May had steadied herself. Then he did something no one in their world would expect of him. He opened the condo's residents' WhatsApp group, his family group, and the internal chat with the board's legal counsel, a trifecta of audiences, and dropped the live feed inside with a single caption. "Emergency at my home. Need police plus ambulance. Elder abuse in progress. I am present and recording." Serena lunged for the phone. He stepped sideways, surprisingly light for a man who hadn't played basketball in 10 years. "Don't," he said. She froze, startled by something in his voice. Finality, perhaps? A locked gate. From the hallway, a door clicked. Auntie May had settled. Adrian lifted the phone to eye level and spoke for the recording. "This is Adrian Lau. Address, Block C, Mont Chiara de Mai, Level 28, Unit 2803. Please dispatch officers. My partner, Serena Lim, has assaulted my mother, Lau Mei Fong." There is a mark on her cheek. The glass was broken in the incident. I am not armed. I am securing the scene. "You're dramatic," Serena said, but her voice shook. "You'll ruin me." He felt something tear inside him, the thin membrane of stories he'd used to justify, excuse, delay. "We ruined us," he said. "Both of us." He set the phone on the console, lens wide, and crossed to the balcony door. He slid it open and stepped into the wet air. The storm that had darkened the afternoon was fading to a pearled drizzle. Serena followed, breath shallow. "Don't... What are you doing?" Adrian took off the ring he had bought Serena. A slender band with a tiny diamond for everyday wear. The practical ring, Serena had called it with a grin when they moved in together. He had thought it a pledge that second chances were real. He held it over the city, over the traffic bleeding along Jalan Duta, over the green sprawl of the golf course, and over the cranes that kept building newer, higher versions of the same hope. "You wouldn't," Serena whispered. "Adrian, don't make a scene." "It's not a scene," he said. "It's an ending." He released the ring. For a heartbeat, it hung in the air, a drop of light. Then it fell, swallowed by rain and distance. Serena's mouth opened, a soundless O. The thunderheads beyond the skyline rumbled. Late. He turned back to the living room, collected 2 cushions from the couch, and went to the guest room. Auntie May was sitting on the edge of the bed, hands around a glass of water that she hadn't lifted to her lips. Her eyes were full of things she would not say. "Ma," he said. The word broke him. He sank to his knees, set the cushions at her feet, and put his forehead to the back of her hand. "I'm sorry." He expected her to scold him for the drama, for inviting public eyes into private shame. Instead, her fingers moved through his hair, a shaky old habit. "Don't kneel, boy," she murmured. "Help me stand." He rose and helped her to the living room, where he sat her on the couch farthest from the glass. He took an ice pack from the freezer, wrapped it in a clean towel, and held it to her cheek. She winced at the cold, then sighed. Serena stood by the balcony door, arms folded, a statue of a woman refusing to be afraid. "I'm calling my lawyer," she said. "You think they'll take your side? You think your ex-wife will clap for you? This is messy. People hate messy." "I'm done curating mess," he said. In the distance, a siren began to climb through traffic. Serena laughed once, brittle. "So this is your big moment? The hero who turns himself inside out for an audience?" She gestured at the phone, still streaming. "You always needed witnesses." Something in him wanted to fight, to defend, to make words win. But Auntie May's small sound, a breath caught, recalibrated the room. Adrian went to the console, ended the live stream, and switched to a private recording. He took a photo of the mark on his mother's cheek with quiet hands. Then he did the second thing that shocked everyone who thought they knew him. He dialed his ex-wife. Nadia answered on the second ring. "Adrian, I need you," he said, and hated that he did, and loved that she picked up anyway. "It's Mom." Silence, then the sound of a car door opening on her end. "Where are you?" "Home," he said. "I'm on my way." The siren grew nearer. Serena slid on her sandals, voice suddenly small. "Adrian, please, let's talk." He met her eyes, and for the first time since he'd met her at a charity gala under 2 bright lights, he saw past the varnish. Fear. Yes, but also a ledger of old injuries, columns of survival. He wasn't the first man in her story. He might not be the worst. That did not change what she had done. "After," he said. "After what?" she asked. "After accountability," he said. The knock sounded. Polite knuckles against moneyed wood. He opened the door to 2 officers and a paramedic. The paramedic, a woman with kind eyes, went straight to Auntie May. The older officer took in the room with a sweep, then nodded to Adrian's phone. Footage? Yes, Adrian said, and I'm ready to make a statement. The officer's gaze flicked to Serena, who had tucked her hair behind her ear, back straight. Ma'am, I need my lawyer, she said. Of course, the officer replied, professional calm. And in that corridor of quiet, the TV still murmuring about exchange rates no one in the room now cared about, Adrian felt the large machine of consequence engage. It was noisy, and it was necessary. He could see, very faintly, a road that might be called redemption. It would not be swift or clean. It would have rules he didn't get to write. He thought of the ring falling into rain. When the elevator chimed again, he knew it was Nadia before the doors opened. She always walked into rooms as if they had always made space for her. She didn't look at Serena. She didn't look at him. She went to Auntie May and took her hand. Hi, Auntie, she said softly. It's me. I'm here. And for the first time that day, Adrian allowed himself to breathe. The station smelled like instant coffee and disinfectant. Adrian's statement went long, not because he was evasive, but because he was thorough in the way he had trained himself to be. Dates, times, checks, balances. The officer, Inspector Ramesh, silver hair at his temples, listened with the tired attention of a man who had seen everything twice. They watched the video together. Ramesh paused, rewound, paused again, noted angles and timestamps. The law wanted specifics. Mr. Lau, Ramesh said eventually. Did you see Ms. Lim strike your mother? Yes. How many times? 1, with the towel. She raised her hand again before I came in. You ended a live stream to the condo group. Yes, Adrian said and grimaced. I wanted help fast. It was reckless. It got us here, Ramesh said, not unkindly. He slid a form across the table. And your mother? We'll need her statement when she's up to it. She'll give it, Adrian said, though he didn't know. He'd grown up in a culture that stacked privacy on top of pride and called it furniture. He thought of Auntie May lowering her eyes when the paramedic swabbed her cheek. He thought of the way she always said, small matter, about everything that was not small. Ms. Lim has a lawyer present, Ramesh said, glancing at the glass panel of the interview room to the corridor beyond, where Serena sat with a woman whose handbag looked like a mortgage. She says your mother slapped her first. He held in his flinch. Did she show a mark? No. Ramesh's pen ticked. But we will consider all statements. Of course, Adrian said. May I? He stopped. The correct words were slippery in his mouth. I'd like to make a supplementary statement. Ramesh's eyebrows met. Regarding this incident? Not directly, Adrian said, but relevant to understanding the dynamics. He exhaled. I believe Ms. Lim was leveraging knowledge of my professional misconduct to pressure me, to isolate me from my family. I don't say this to excuse anything, hers or mine, but to contextualize the power imbalance. The pen paused. What misconduct? Accounting irregularities, Adrian said. At Southern Star Logistics, deferred liabilities disguised as revenue. The board knows. Well, the legal counsel knows now. I sent them the video and a note to convene an emergency audit. He laughed once, short. It turns out when you open one door, all the air rushes into all the rooms. Ramesh looked at him with a kind of reluctant respect. You're making yourself very vulnerable. I've been letting the wrong people do that for me, Adrian said. This is correct vulnerability. Ramesh wrote for a long moment. We'll add it to the file. There will be consequences. I know, Adrian said. He didn't ask for mercy. He didn't deserve it. Not as a bargaining chip. If mercy came, it would have to arrive as something earned later, a day at a time. On the other side of the glass, Serena turned her head, as if she felt him thinking about her. For a second, he saw the woman he had fallen for. Bright, quick, her laughter something you wanted to catch and keep. He remembered the first time he introduced her to colleagues at Troika's rooftop bar, the city tinseled below them. He had loved how she loved the view. He had not asked what she would do to keep looking down from that height. A soft knock at the door broke the thread. Nadia slipped inside, hair pulled back, face scrubbed of everything except competence. Ramesh rose, nodded, left them a minute. "You okay?" Nadia asked. "No," Adrian said, and felt the relief of saying it. "But I'm telling the truth." "Good," she said simply. She sat opposite him. Her hands were clasped, calm hands that had held 1,000 small emergencies during their marriage. Fever readings in the night, mortgage calculators, missed school buses. "Auntie's resting. The paramedic says it's a superficial bruise, thank God." He closed his eyes. "I'm sorry." She nodded once. "You should tell me the rest." He told her about the spreadsheets that wouldn't balance, the quarter where the harbor strike in Port Klang had gored their margins, the CEO's quiet suggestion that optics mattered more than a temporary blip. He told her about the small lies that became a structure, and how Serena became the only person he trusted with the secret, because she did not flinch at it. He told her about loneliness, which had started before their divorce, which he'd blamed on her standards and his hours, though the rot had been in his own spine. Nadia listened the way she used to listen, a clean lumen in her gaze. When he was done, she said, "Were you going to tell me if this hadn't happened?" "No," he said. Honesty felt like sandpaper, abrasive, necessary. She exhaled. "Okay." "Okay?" he asked. "Okay means I've registered the information," she said dryly. "Consequences are coming. For you, for her, for all of us a little bit. But Auntie is priority one. Then Hannah." He flinched at his daughter's name, 7 years old, with a gap-toothed smile that could still undo him. He hadn't seen Hannah in 3 weeks. It was supposed to be his weekend on, then his weekend off. A brittle schedule drawn by lawyers, punctured by his work. He had let Serena's moods gatekeep his fatherhood, and the shame of that lived somewhere between his rib and lung. "I want to do right by Hannah," he said. "Doing right is not saying right," Nadia replied. "It's showing up. It's therapy. It's accepting what the board may do. It's paying for the damage you've done, and not making the damage part of your personality." Her gaze softened. "And it's letting Auntie decide what she wants, not deciding for her like she's furniture." He nodded. "Understood." Ramesh returned. Formalities resumed. He asked for contact details. He asked to photograph the mark again in the station's light. He explained the process. If Auntie May pressed charges, the case would proceed. Even without her, the state could pursue. He cautioned them not to speak to each other beyond what the lawyers allowed. He gave them a case number, neat on a card. They stepped into the corridor just as Serena and her lawyer emerged from another room. For a breath, the two women faced Nadia like opposite sides of a coin. One pulled tight against consequence, one waiting to shepherd it in. Serena's eyes slid to Adrian. "You made a fool of me," she said, voice quiet in a way that sounded less like defense and more like a habit. "I did that to myself first," he said. Her lawyer touched Serena's elbow, a gentle pivot. "We'll be in touch," she told Ramesh, then steered Serena toward the exit. Outside, the air had washed clean. The end-of-day storm had rinsed the heat down the drains. They walked to Nadia's car, where Auntie May waited in the back seat, with a blanket around her shoulders, a hospital bandage like a shy moon on her cheek. Auntie May smiled when she saw Adrian, that same patient smile she'd used when he bungled his first tie as a teenager. "Ah, boy," she said, "we go home now." "You're home," Nadia said, soft but firm. Adrian swallowed. "Yes, Ma, you're home." He stood on the curb as they drove away. He had keys to places that were no longer his. He had a condo full of furniture that would soon feel like a showroom someone had abandoned. He had a career he might not return to. He had a video file in his phone that had interrupted 100 quiet stories. Neighbors eating dinner, a security guard in the lobby, a bored lawyer with a headache. He didn't know who he was without the next meeting on the calendar. His phone buzzed. A message from Southern Star's legal counsel. Board convening 10 a.m. Wednesday. Bring documentation. Expect independent audit. Another message, unexpected, from his father-in-law, Nadia's father, whom he still called Uncle Aziz out of habit. Mei Fong with us. She's safe. Come tomorrow, 7 p.m. We talk. He read the second message twice. A meeting, not about litigation. A kitchen table, probably, with chicken soup and things that didn't fix anything but reminded you were not entirely unsalvageable. He texted back, "Thank you, Uncle, I'll be there." Then he went home to the condo one last time, to lock up, to sit in the empty living room, and listen to the rain knock once, twice, and fade. Wednesday arrived without fanfare. Adrian wore a navy suit, the one that had been lucky in earlier seasons of his life. He left the tie at home. At Southern Star's conference room, the board sat like a panel of history, men and women whose names were verbs in the industry. At the head, Chairwoman Ko, with eyes like scales. Beside her, legal counsel, auditors, the CEO with his smile turned down at the edges. Adrian laid out documents with the neatness of apology. Emails, spreadsheets, the memo where he had once scratched a different truth over the right one and told himself it was temporary. He explained the strike, the supply chain disruptions, the CEO's optics comment, his own judgment like a skewed compass. He did not mention Serena unless required by a question. He did not mention his mother's cheek. He stayed in the rectangle of the table. When it was over, the chairwoman folded her hands. "You have saved us time by confessing," she said. "Time matters. Money matters. Reputations matter. People matter most." Adrian waited. "You are suspended pending investigation," she continued. "You will have legal representation, but not the companies. The audit will be independent. If fraud is confirmed, we will cooperate fully with authorities." She paused. "Do you have anything else to say?" He thought of the version of himself who would have argued context like a spellbook, who would have framed choices as burdens carried for the team. He also thought of Auntie May pressing a coin into the temple's offering box when he was a child, whispering a prayer about not wasting borrowed time. "I'm sorry," he said, and it felt too small and exactly correct. "I won't spend more of your time." Outside the conference room windows, cranes continued to lift steel into blue. The city built and rebuilt itself in his absence. He went to his car and stared at his hands on the steering wheel until the leather texture returned from abstraction to reality. He thought of calling Serena and did not. Instead, he drove to a place he had avoided for a year, the old apartment in Bangsar, where he and Nadia had rented before the condo. The one with the cracked sink that sang when the upstairs neighbor showered. Not to trespass nostalgia. To understand it. He parked on the side street and sat there. A woman came out carrying a toddler. Not Nadia, not him, not their life. People lived where you used to, and they did fine. At 7, he drove to Nadia's parents' house in Petaling Jaya. The gate whirred open like it was always opening for him. The smell of turmeric drifted from the kitchen. Inside, the house was a museum of family. Photos of Hannah grinning. Nadia with flour on her nose decorating cupcakes. Auntie May in a batik blouse pouring tea like Grace. Auntie May sat on the sofa, the bandage gone, the mark a faint map of yesterday. She patted the seat beside her. He sat, and she took his hand. "You look thin," she said. "I'll eat," he promised. "Eat and tell the truth and sleep," she said, as if prescribing vitamins. "And stop marrying trouble." "Ma," he said, startled into a laugh. Nadia's father, Uncle Aziz, poured tea into small cups that steamed like tiny altars. "We are not court," he said, handing one to Adrian. "We are kitchen. Kitchen is where we fix what we can fix, and plan what we can't." "Thank you," Adrian said. Nadia appeared with Hannah, hair damp from a bath, smelling of mango shampoo. Hannah paused, the careful pause of a child reading adult weather. Adrian braced for rejection. Hannah climbed into the armchair across from him and hugged her knees. "Hi, Papa," she said. His heart, long tight, opened its fist. "Hi, Bear," he said. "I missed you." "You okay?" she asked, echoing Nadia's clean question. "I'm learning to be," he said. "How's school?" She told him about a class hamster that escaped and was found behind the library chewing a bookmark. She told him about a song she liked. He listened like a man kneeling at an altar he had once rushed past. Small things were not small. After Hannah went to work on a puzzle at the coffee table, the adults spoke in low currents. Nadia laid out boundaries like placemats. Therapy appointments scheduled with a counselor named Dr. Shalini. A mediation session with a family lawyer to revisit custody arrangements so that Hannah's time with her father would be stable and safe. If charges progressed against Serena, he would not contact Serena directly. He would update them about the audit's progress without melodrama. "And Ma?" Adrian asked, turning to Auntie May. "What do you want?" "I want to go home," she said. "Not to your place, to my small flat with my plants. I want a helper who's kind." "I'll hire and pay for the helper," he said. "I will supervise the hiring," Nadia added mildly, and Auntie May nodded, satisfied. "And I will visit you every Saturday morning," Adrian said, the promise forming as he spoke, startling him with its rightness. "I will bring you breakfast from the kopitiam. We will sit on your balcony. I will not bring dramas or lies. Just breakfast." Auntie May patted his hand. "We will see. You will bring Kaya toast. Thick. Thick," he promised. In the kitchen, he washed bowls with Nadia in a silence that didn't bite. She passed him a towel. The domestic choreography felt like a language he still remembered, muscle memory from a kinder decade. "You loved her," Nadia said finally, not a question. "I loved how she made me feel," he said. "Seen. Less like a failure. That's not the same as loving." "No," Nadia agreed. "It's not." "She was hurt first," he added uselessly. "Most of us were," Nadia said. "Hurt isn't an alibi, but it's a map." She handed him a bowl. "I am angry with you, Adrian, and I am relieved that you chose us when it mattered. Both can be true." "I don't expect anything," he said. "Good," she said, but her eyes were kind. He drove home late to a condo that smelled like rain and absence. On the way up in the lift, he caught his reflection and did not look away. He unlocked the door and stood in the threshold of a life like a showroom. He packed a suitcase badly, folding shirts like apologies. He slept on the couch and woke to the sound of a sparrow trapped on the balcony, beating at the glass. He opened the door, and the bird burst out into air. The next morning, he moved into a serviced apartment near his mother's flat. Clean, anonymous, a way station. He met with Dr. Shalini and cried in a polite office full of plants. He brought Kaya toast to Auntie May on Saturday and sat on her balcony watching a thunderhead develop, and he did not narrate his guilt like a memoir. He cut the police a check for the broken property fee and hired a lawyer who told him to stop tweeting statements into the void. He stopped participating in the condo WhatsApp group. 2 weeks later, Inspector Ramesh called. "Ms. Lim has been charged with assault," he said. "The case will proceed. There may be a plea. Your mother's testimony helped." "How is she?" Adrian asked stupidly. "She is fine," Ramesh said. "She asked me if I was eating enough vegetables." He paused. "You may be contacted by Miss Lim's counsel regarding mediation. They sometimes try for restorative arrangements. Given your admissions, it might be complex." "I will follow my mother's wishes," Adrian said. "And the law." After the call, he sat on the steps outside his mother's flat. The neighbor's kid practiced piano badly, courageously. Somewhere a dog barked twice, bragging. He felt the ground under him like permission. Serena texted that night for the first time since the station. "You dropped the ring, but you kept everything else." He stared at the words. Then, "I am prepared to own my part in this. I will not barter contrition for silence." Her reply was immediate, brittle. "You always perform." He thought of performances and kitchens and altars and thick kaya toast, and he put his phone down without replying. He brushed his mother's cat, an elderly, suspicious creature that had decided he was passable. And he slept like work. Redemption, he realized, wasn't a staircase. It was a floor you had to scrub every morning because life lived on it. Courtrooms are poor places for closure and excellent places for clarity. Serena stood in a neutral dress, hair pulled back, face careful, the way the city's women had learned to dress when they needed people to listen to their words more than their bodies. Her lawyer spoke for her, and when it was Serena's turn, she spoke briefly about childhood and precarity and fear of becoming invisible in a life that took so long to build. She did not ask for forgiveness from Adrian. She turned to Auntie May and, in a voice like someone practicing a new language, said, "I am sorry." Auntie May, who had spent her youth stitching shirts in a hot room and her middle age caring for a husband who died between one breath and the next, tilted her head. "Don't do it again," she said. A blessing for anyone who wanted to become new. The judge agreed to a plea: fines, probation, mandatory counseling, community service at an elder care center. Adrian felt a strange, clean ache. He had imagined rage, but what arrived was the complicated relief of systems doing what they were meant to do, imperfectly and with paperwork. Outside, Serena caught his eye as her lawyer fielded calls. She approached like a ghost of a different life. "You ruined me," she said, but there was no conviction in it, only habit. "I exposed us," he said. "I told you my worst," she whispered. "You used it against me." "I used the truth against both of us," he said. "It's the only tool I trust now." She looked at the sky as if trying to memorize the color for an exam. "I don't want to be this person," she said, startling herself with the admission. "Then do different tomorrow," he said, hearing Auntie May in his mouth. She nodded once, as if translating. "Goodbye, Adrian." "Goodbye, Serena." He went to his mother's later with a bag of groceries and a new electric kettle because hers had begun to complain. Nadia was there, helping organize the new helper's schedule. Hannah darted in and out of the kitchen, wearing a cape made from an old scarf, a superhero with a missing tooth. "There's mail for you," Auntie May said, pointing to the table. A thick packet from the auditors, an envelope from Southern Star, a postcard from a friend with a picture of Penang hawker stalls. He opened the company letter. Termination with cause. Benefits forfeited, except what the law required. He had expected it. It felt like the last page of a chapter he should have finished years ago. That night, he wrote emails that did not dramatize. To the team he had led, to the CEO, to the chairwoman. He wrote to the HR assistant who had once loaned him a sweater at a too-cold offsite, thanking her for always remembering people's birthdays. He wrote to the junior analyst whose report he had ignored the quarter the ledger went bad and told him he was right. He did not write to anyone asking for a bridge. He walked across no bridges that week. He built none. He sold the condo. He paid legal fees. He moved to a smaller place within walking distance of his mother and a short drive to Nadia's. He took a job that felt like penance and promise. Teaching financial ethics part-time at a local university, visiting small businesses as a consultant to set up transparent systems. He learned to say, "I made this mistake," to young faces who had not yet decided what they would do when the graphs didn't climb. The first lecture, a student asked, "So why should we listen to you?" "Because I know where the shortcuts lead," he said, "and what it costs to walk back." A murmur, not unkind, rose from the room, the sound of minds adjusting. On Saturdays, he brought breakfast to Auntie May. They ate on the balcony. They watched thunderheads build. On Sundays, he took Hannah to the park and did not check his phone. She flew a kite shaped like a whale, and he ran with her until his breath broke and he laughed like a boy who had not failed anyone yet. Months passed, a small sanity at a time. Then one afternoon, on a campus lawn after he'd guest lectured a class, a woman approached him with a clipboard. and a certainty particular to younger activists. "Mr. Lau," she said, "we're organizing a panel on restorative justice in white-collar crimes. Will you sit with a former CFO who went to prison and a community organizer who works with families harmed by corporate fraud?" He thought of how proud he used to be of acronyms, of the way panels made you feel important. For an hour, he almost said no. Then he thought of Uncle Aziz saying kitchens were for fixing and planning. And he said yes, if they would also include someone from a union and someone from a small-town shop that had nearly folded. At the panel, he said out loud, "If you have the kind of job that can steal invisibly, you must love transparency the way a firefighter loves water." Afterward, an old shopkeeper shook his hand and said, "You talk like you're paying back a debt." Adrian smiled. "I am." One evening, after he and Nadia had debriefed Hannah's school project over a dish rack, he found himself lingering, not for reconciliation, but for the way their daughter's laughter made the air unclench. "Do you ever think—" he began, then stopped, because the sentence was about rooms they no longer lived in. Nadia dried her hands and looked at him with a softness vigilant against fantasy. "I think about tomorrow's logistics," she said, "and about how you're showing up now. That's enough." She smiled, smaller than their old smiles, but more durable. "We're better parents apart than we were together unhappily." He nodded. He could build a life on that kind of truth. Later he went home and found a small padded envelope at his door. No return address. Inside, wrapped in tissue, was a ring. Thin, modest, familiar. A note in Serena's cramped hand. "Found by groundskeeper. I paid him to look. Figured you'd want closure more literal than metaphor. Don't make it a keepsake." He sat at the table, the ring in his palm like a story rolled into metal. He took the elevator to the lobby and handed it to the concierge. "Lost and found," he said. "Not mine anymore." The concierge nodded. "Many things aren't," he said with the wisdom of men who see 100 small dramas a day. The seasons did what they do in the tropics, shifted in flavors of rain. The scar on Auntie May's cheek faded completely. Adrian taught 2 courses, then 3. He learned students' names the way he used to learn client accounts. When a young man stayed after class to confess that he was being asked to smooth numbers, Adrian did not deliver a sermon. He asked questions until the young man decided to walk away from the job. They stood on the steps afterward, watching a cloud cast shadow over the grass. "Thank you," the student said. "Don't thank me," Adrian said. "Thank the future you who didn't want to live with a lie." On the first anniversary of that Tuesday, Adrian bought mangoes. He walked into Auntie May's flat and placed them carefully in a bowl. He called Nadia and asked if he could pick Hannah up from school. He waited in the sun outside the gate, listening to the clamor of small feet. When Hannah ran into his arms, he held her the way a man holds his way forward. He was not a hero. He was a man who had done harm and then chosen, again and again, to stop. He was a son who had kneeled. He was a father who had learned how to be on time. He took Hannah for ice cream. He texted Nadia a photo of melted chocolate on a gap-toothed grin. The world did not cheer. It didn't need to. The world continued, which was miracle enough. People had expected the dramatic thing. The shouted argument in the lobby. The public breakup at a bar. The viral video of a man sobbing apologies under fluorescent lights. What shocked those who had known Adrian was the quietness of his choices after the storm. He did not post about growth. He did not perform contrition with the volume up. He simply kept doing the unremarkable, difficult things that bored the ego and fed the soul. Even gossip ran out of breath. The condo WhatsApp group moved on to arguing about parking spaces, and a stray cat diplomatically renamed a community pet. The headlines that once curled around his name unspooled and dissolved in the feed. One Saturday, as he stood at a stall ordering kopi for Auntie May and a packet of nasi lemak for himself, someone tapped his shoulder. It was Chairwoman Ko, in linen and sneakers, the camouflage of the rich who liked to shop where the air didn't. "Mr. Lau," she said. "How are you?" It wasn't a question. It was a test. "I'm doing the work," he said, which was neither boast nor plea. She nodded once. "We did not press criminal charges," she said. "The audit found more negligence than malice. I'm not congratulating you. I'm stating facts. Don't mistake them for absolution." "I won't," he said. She eyed his Nazi lemak. "Good sambal here," she said, and moved on. He brought breakfast to Auntie May and watched her cut mango with the precision of a surgeon. The slices bent like little suns. He felt the memory of his first day carrying numbers that wouldn't add, the way his stomach had telegraphed danger, and he had ignored it. He wondered what version of himself had been birthed by that ignoring. He wondered who saw him now not as a hero or a villain, but as a man who could be trusted to say what time it was, and what it wasn't. That afternoon, his phone buzzed again with a message whose sender was simply S. "Volunteering at Elder Care Center. They put me on games. I am not good at bingo." He stared at the text a long time. Then he typed, "Good. Keep going." A bubble of typing dots appeared, faded, returned. "You still perform," came the reply after a full minute. He deleted the conversation, and then, mindful of Dr. Shalini's counsel about avoidance, he sent a final message. "You're right. And I'm learning the difference between a performance and a practice." He turned off his phone and lay on the floor with Hannah that evening, building a city out of blocks. She made a tower that leaned like tomorrow. He made a bridge. They let the cat knock down a wall and collectively decided it was an earthquake and rebuilt with more triangles, because triangles, Hannah informed him, were strong. "Like you," she declared, and placed a triangle on his chest. He smiled, working on it. Later, at Nadia's door, he lingered a second too long and then caught himself. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome," she replied. They were not a couple renewed, but they were an ex-wife and ex-husband who could pass a child back and forth without wounding her with their grips. That was a kind of love that didn't get movies. When the panel on restorative justice released a recording, a comment under it read, "The most shocking thing is how boring redemption looks." He laughed when he read it, not because it was wrong, but because it had the bright ring of an accidental gospel. Redemption was boring. It involved receipts and calendars and apologies that weren't fishing for compliments. It was a list on the fridge: therapy at 3, volunteer shift at 5, dinner with Ma at 7. He taped the list beside his daughter's artwork. It turned out the wall had room for both, and sometimes, alone in his small kitchen, with the hum of the fridge loud as a life raft, he would lay his palms on the countertop and remember that first soft enough, the way it had opened a door he could have kept shut for years, the way it had let light into a room where the air belonged to fear. He had not been brave then. He had been finished. Which, Dr. Shalini suggested, was occasionally the same thing. He poured himself water and watched the glass fog. In the reflection, his face looked like any man's. A man who could ruin a life, or repair one by increments. He lifted the glass like a quiet vow, and drank. If this story reached someplace tender in you, if you recognized the tug of pride, the weight of consequence, or the steady, boring bravery of trying again, don't let it sit silent. Share it with someone who needs a nudge toward the door marked enough. Like the video, if the moments rang true, drop a comment with the twist you didn't see coming, and subscribe for more layered human stories that don't talk down to you. It helps more than you know, and it keeps this channel telling complicated truths with heart. Until the next story, be kind to your past self, accountable to your present, and generous with the future you're walking toward.